Well, very cool. So we're entering into our part two of Sounds and Grounds here with Simon McKay, drummer extraordinaire, with my co-host, the Bard of Shred and Rum, Jack Costo. We got tons of questions. I think touring is a big thing, and both you guys have. I've questioned anyone's experience in this day and age against both of you guys touring the world. Uh, Post-apocalyptic Mad Max realm that we live in, so to speak. I can jump right into some of these questions here, just to kind of stick with the format in our part two of Sounds and Grounds here.
Sure.
Thank everybody for checking us out in this second part, and thanks to our special guest Simon for agreeing to do this. A lot of things pertain to Europe. And Europe, I think, is a love hate for a lot of touring musicians that are out there right now. Let me see. Here we go. So this is a particular question. This one's from Instagram. Dan Lucindo has a question. He says he saw you in Portugal, Simon, and he's tempted to ask your questions about the place. So I don't know if it's Portugal in general or the venue particularly. But he wants to know what your thoughts are in Europe and how difficult did you find it touring Europe compared to the U.S. And Jack, totally, this is your ball game as well. Dan is rooting for you, Simon. He always has thought of you as a super fun, chill dude. Has lots of love and says best of luck for whatever comes next. So thank you, Dan, for your submission. And I'll just open the floodgates here, and I'll let Simon and Jack just take it away. So go ahead with what your thoughts are there.
What's harder, touring Europe or touring USA? USA? I mean, it really depends on the tour. If you ask me, it depends on a lot of things. It depends on your mode of transportation. It depends on the venues you're playing. It depends on the bill that you're on. In general, I've always loved Europe more than playing USA, to be honest with you. The vibe is a little bit different. I mean, I love touring the USA, don't get me wrong, but well, this is going to actually bleed into the other topics, but like typically the cost of touring Europe and being able to get a bus was not astronomical. So what happened was we would always be, up until very recently, we would always tour Europe and share a bus with 2 or even 3 other bands. Sometimes you even have a double-decker bus, you know, and you got like bottom lounge and then all the bunks up top. So it wouldn't be too bad. It'd still be expensive as heck, but it wouldn't be like crazy to share a bus. So if you're in a bus and you're touring Europe, that automatically means that you're getting sleep, and that's a huge like factor of touring and what's going to make it good or bad for you personally. There's
Right.
you personally and there's the band. What's good for you, what's good for the band. But you want to talk about personal, I mean, we've never toured in a bus. The Agonist never had a bus in the USA. When we toured the USA, we always were touring in a van, which is difficult, which is, you know, on its own. I mean, I've done countless van tours, you know, that's what we did. And in Europe, it was always like, oh yeah, we got a Europe tour. We're gonna be in a bus, and like we're gonna have like crew, because obviously often they would have like a package deal for crew, and then you all share the crew as well in Europe. And also in Europe, the catering has always been, well, there is catering, period. In the USA, there is no catering. Unless you're a headliner band and you have specific requests that have to be fulfilled by the promoter. So if you're a support band, it's a buyout, which is fine. You go find your food, but it's so nice, you know, you get off your bus in Europe, you're like, I slept good. You go into the venue in Europe, there's the get in time, and then there's load in, and get in is before load in, and get in means you go and you have a coffee and have some cereal or whatever, then you load in. And that's badass, because you go in and you start your morning like a civilized human being, you know, you get up, you stretch, you brush your teeth, you have a coffee. All right, let's get to work, you know? And that's amazing. That's like, it makes you feel so normal. And like when you're on tour, you're just often latching on for these things that make you feel normal and good. And like, because it can be really, really hard, you know? So I've always loved touring in Europe more than the USA. But recently, this is going into other questions, costs have been so high that, well, we had to take an RV out in Europe. And that was a whole nother experience. It was the first time ever doing that. So I think I've always liked Europe more than the States. Not that I don't love my American brethren and all, and I love people in the States, but the vibe is just different, and I don't know. I think that's where I stand on that. That might change though.
Right. And
Yeah,
just so people know, just real quick, Simon is from Canada. So he has an outside perspective, but is toured here and in Europe as well. Sorry, go ahead, Jack. My bad.
oh yeah, I was just gonna say you pretty much hit the nail on the head. That's my experience as well. Like there is such a big difference when you get to start the day as a human and not as a machine. Um, I really like the European way of traveling in the bus with the other bands. Like that was I've only done one full European tour, and having all three bands on the bus, all getting to hang out after the shows, like all getting to spend time with each other. I feel like I genuinely made lifelong friends on that. Whereas opposed to like being in our own tiny vehicle and just showing up, doing the job, and leaving, you don't interact nearly as much with the other bands. So
For sure.
I
Yeah.
I feel like socially it's so much more sustainable and fun in Europe. But the shows over here in North America are way more consistent, I would say. The travel is more consistent. And I think the crowds are more consistent, like with what they like and what they don't like. Like when you go from country to country each day and different languages, like the different ways people will interpret stage banter or jokes or things like this, different attitudes. It can just be very different from day to day in an interesting way. But you definitely know what to prepare for over here.
That's very true, man.
Yeah, that
I don't pretend to have nearly as much touring experience as Simon does, but
right.
No, but it's
some
absolutely
of
true.
it at least.
It's
Yeah,
like sorry.
sorry. No, go ahead.
Just close my window. Also,
Yeah.
like in Europe, like the stylistic differences are just like incredible. Like what can work in Europe will not work at all in the States, and vice versa.
You mean musically, or
Yeah, musically, I didn't specify like what like musically is. Some things would be like just absolutely enormous in Europe and would just be perceived as cheesy as hell in North America.
Right. That's probably the Eurovision influence over there. I think you can do a lot more uh, exploratory type of things musically in Europe than here. Like someone goes to a metal show, like let's say it's a European death metal headliner. Uh, in Europe, you could have more of a symphonic band playing with them. I think in the States, from what I've seen, and I'm in Virginia, which is very like people drive around Virginia to not play here. That's a classic Virginia line. Like people like they don't want their genres crossing here. Is my take being
yeah,
American.
gatekeeping over here is very serious business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel that.
So overall, Europe just seems to be better but worse at the same time, or just not worse, different. Just
Look, man, it
different.
depends. It really depends on who you are, what band you
Right,
are, like
right.
what what project you're bringing to Europe. Like, I think the Agonist always did better in Europe than
Sure.
the USA. I guess it's because of the sound that we had. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah, it's USA. It's like old school death metal, man. That is huge in the USA. Like when I went out with Inhuman Condition and like Deicide, like
Yeah.
man, those like old school death metal is huge in the USA. Huge.
Yeah.
And I think it's fucking awesome. But
Yeah, a lot of the guys,
right
on. A lot of the guys that we work with on the guitar side, like that's what we started off, with just Florida death metal. Like we probably had more artists than anything. Um, I don't think you can really make a living as popular as that is here. None of the guys that we have endorsed don't have a day job, and they're like the purveyors of the genre. As popular as it is, you can't feed yourself unless you are you went out with Deicide. Unless you're that level, anything under that, you're struggling regardless of touring the U.S. or touring Europe.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, can't or don't is a strong phrase too, because I have a lot of friends in like relatively small bands that are kind of doing a lot of stuff themselves and making a decent living. Where I know guys in huge bands that aren't really making a decent living, and I
It's
think
true.
there are a lot of factors that go into play of even what your needs are as an individual and where you live and all this stuff. So it's hard to generalize things like this,
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Sure.
especially like you hear a lot of people generalizing to like younger guys or people that are aspiring to do this and say, oh yeah, you can never make a living doing this, or
Right.
you'll never be successful doing that. And I love to put a pin in that, and
Why would you
when I
say that?
can.
Most
Yeah,
people are just
it's
jaded
depressing.
from it, you know. It's okay. Someone that has that opinion, that's just what they want to say. Um, they've experienced that, and the negativity is strong enough where it's like you can't do this, like you said, Jack.
Listen,
Um,
man, that's all up to you, man.
right, right.
Yeah,
That's all up
I
to
think
you.
whatever you think
You
you're
choose to
right.
be. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, I'm gonna be honest with you. Like this whole Agonist breakup thing has been really hard on me emotionally, and I started to see some of that negative, jaded energy coming out of me, and
right.
I was like, "Oh no, 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 no!
Yeah, I'm
I'm
sorry.
gonna nip this. I am not gonna be that guy, like ever."
Right. Well,
So
because your future depends on you being cool about it because you're in the position now like you started um you did a tour with another band, you're offering your services as a pro recording and touring musician. uh, One of the questions kind of pertain to band members and stuff, but you had posted this very recently, is you don't want to be that guy that no one wants to be around, that your attitude's terrible, you make life miserable for everybody that you're around. Who, no matter how good you are, who wants to hire that guy or who wants to be in a band with that guy for that matter? So your
yeah,
attitude is the most important thing, I think, even looking at it outside the box as a fan. But your attitude is more important than your ability to play. I would much rather hang out with people that maybe weren't the best, but you enjoyed their company. Like Jack mentioned, being on tour, you're making your family's growing, you're getting friends, and your fellowship is growing. And I think that's a big part of any art, whether it's music or entertainment in general. um, you're building that, and your attitude is key to doing it the right way, in my opinion anyway. you know
for sure, man. Look, anyone that's been in a band for a extended period of time, like you'll learn and grow a lot from that. Like it teaches you so much and how to like, you're training yourself. It's like a muscle, you
right.
know. When sometimes you gotta be like, it just seems crazy to do the thing, but you're just gonna do the thing anyways because you love the thing, and that's a really unconventional way to live life. Not every so you learn a lot. Like I know I have grown as a person tremendously from my experiences and being in this band, and I'm very grateful for that.
Right on.
Yeah, I think that's the only way to look at it and not end up hating everything, Like,
That should be
Gratitude,
my t-shirt.
gratitude,
yeah,
gratitude, man. When you're just grateful for even just one thing in your life, like really, truly, truly grateful, and you really honestly look at it, that little bit of gratitude will just overshadow all the darkness. It gratitude kills the darkness. So I've been practicing gratitude every day, and it's great. I'm grateful to have gratitude.
that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
Very, very cool, man. So here's something we can throw out there just for a question, just to change it up. But your positivity is refreshing, man, because we've talked online a little bit and this and that, but and Jack and I are like, he's gonna either unleash a bunch of stuff or just talk about whatever, and I'm like, it's cool, because you had mentioned before, we had talked a little bit about this news kind of breaking, but it affects you because that was your life for almost 2 decades, which is amazing. Like that's very respectable. And the fact that you're humble about it and are are having all these feelings and trying to stay positive, man, that's like the coolest, because you could easily be the guy that was like, this podcast would be over already if it was like some kind of a slam fest. But you know, it's a dream for both of you guys to do what you do. Like, people dream about this, and they've dreamed about it since, you know, Leo Fender made like one of the first Stratocaster guitars, you know, it's to play music. Do you have like a dream venue? That was one of the questions I did definitely want to touch on. Erica Eclipse from Instagram. Do you have a dream venue that you've played or haven't played, or you want to play in the future, or festival? I know you did a lot of festival shows, Jack, as well, and has some coming up that he can certainly talk about. But is there a dream for you to play somewhere, or have played, that's affected you personally?
Yeah, I'd love to play main stage at Wacken. I've never played Wacken. I've never been to Wacken before.
Mm,
My favorite thing to do, like when I picture like what I love about being in like a metal band, it's like playing a festival outdoor, like in the daylight, where you can see everyone. Everyone's like and spilling beer all over each other and chaos. Like that is my like happy place.
wow.
Like to me, nothing could be better than that. So I'd love to play main stage at Wacken, and hopefully I will with whatever band might invite me to play there.
Awesome.
That's exactly how I would answer that question also. Like, to me, there's nothing more like dream worthy than open air giant festival like Wacken, or any of the like Download, or that will be the experience where I check off a little box in the shit I've done,
Right.
planner, or whatever you want to call it.
Hell yeah.
So like, what can
I
be
also want to
done?
play the pool deck stage on 70,000 tons
Oh,
at a good stop, just to be out there in the sun or in the wind on a boat.
right.
70K is awesome. Awesome.
You know,
Yeah.
you're not your typical answer for metal bands. Like, 1 a.m, it's dark, it's like the witching hour. It's like, nope, we want to play in the daytime with sunlight and the wind blowing and stuff. It's just the transition to
Yeah, all tanning oil and
right,
everything.
man.
Ice cream.
Yeah, a symphonic bardcore sad metal band with a tan would be quite the sight to beheld. So
Oh.
I'll sign up for viewing that show any day of the week. But
Oh.
it seems like both the things you guys mentioned, well, 70 tons not so much, but the European vibe, touring in general and shows, like, how do we change that here? How do we make a tour, you show up to the venue, you kind of check it out, it's not so rushed and so uncomfortable for musicians? Like, why is there such a disconnect between how Europe does it and the States? And it's every state. You don't go to some venues here and it's different, but how do we bring that here? Like, what do you think is the disconnect there?
That's a really good question. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah, I wish I had an answer for that, because I'd be doing it instead of talking about it here.
Right. The festivals here, like, I'm starting to see some, like Vegas has a big festival. We have this huge one in Virginia, this Blue Ridge thing, and it's an absolute S show. It's a nightmare. The level of bands they're getting is respectable, but every person behind the scenes I know that has attended this thing are like, I will never do this. Like, they're trying to get the clout of like a Wacken or Download here, but they literally have no idea how to do it right. But they're getting names, so you don't get the top 5 selling heavy metal bands in the world playing in Virginia for free. So it's getting that money aspect, but also giving a shit about the bands and wanting them to feel like what Simon says, feeling human. People don't realize that aspect, and hearing him say that is like a light bulb went off in my head. It's like, you don't get to feel human to live your dream. Like, how messed up is that, you know? So that's something we can work on with our show. Is like, hey, let's get some people on here that can help change, the treatment of bands. It's not just about the ticket processing fees more than the ticket. If that's the case, the band needs to have catering. They need to have time to come in. They need to have the right support. Otherwise, after the past few years of chaos, people are going to stop doing this or not be able to afford to do it.
Yeah.
So that needs to change. Number one, and just I'm sure it's consistent musician to musician. Again, unless you're just the multi-millionaire that doesn't have to do this anymore and they're flying to your shows. Not mentioning anyone in particular that owns their own airplane that flies to shows, but everybody should be treated human, whether you have a 747 or a bus or a van. Yeah.
I don't know who you're talking about with the airplane, but anyway, I think we toured with them.
Did you? Were you on the plane?
No.
Oh.
They had a plane. He had a plane.
Oh.
Anyway, that was going from show to show. Yeah, I don't know, man. To be honest with you, how is it so different? That's actually a really good question. Like I don't think I've ever even wondered that, but it's like valid question. Like, why is this? The thing is, man, is that we get to live our dream, so we accept so much bullshit. That is the fucking issue. We deal with so much crap because we're musicians and we're on the road and we're doing, and you just learn to that's bullshit, but you block it off and move on and go forward. But like in reality, any normal person would be like, "That's crazy, man. You're crazy. Like, what are you doing? Stop doing that." And you're like, "Well, you don't understand me, man. You don't understand the fucking fire I have in my heart to do this. Yeah, I'm crazy. Okay, move on." Like, so that's what you just build. But that's bad. You build these bad habits in your head, and then it can even bleed into your life of putting up with shit. And then all of a sudden, you're just putting up with all this bullshit, and you just feel bad, and you're like, "Why am I?" You've trained yourself to deal with all this crap, and like on the positive side, is you get hardened because of it, and you look at other people with their problems, and you're like, "Are you fucking kidding me? This is a problem for you? Like, this is nothing. You're like, this is nothing. Like, you have not lived a life. You know what I mean? Like."
Right. Oh, your M&Ms are the wrong color. You're in such a bad place right now.
Well, that's on that side of the diva singer side, but even on like just a normal person side and
life side.
Yeah, right. Bitching about some small thing, and you're like, "What, dude? Like this is nothing," you know?
Yeah, the diva thing is such a stereotype, but I've met so few people who are actually like that. Like, it's really rare. That's not like a normal musician way of being.
Mm-hmm. Not in metal, anyways. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe, or maybe way higher up than I am at the moment. But I think the more I think about it, I think over here it's a lot easier, or the reason I think that things aren't more like over in Europe is because everything is focused on cutting costs and making a profit. So like venues don't have kitchens to provide catering. Load in times are later in the day so that they don't have to pay staff to show up earlier. Like it's these kind of little things that create bigger problems. Down to like not even having like decent parking half the time, and like bands having to park 2 miles down the street because they can't accommodate extra vehicles because
That's a really, really good point, actually. I think that's pretty much what it is. Yeah. Absolutely. And there's a lot of, also what I thought of when you were saying that, there's a lot of venues in Europe that are owned by the government, actually. The government
those were
subsidized.
The best ones.
Yeah, they are.
They were
clean.
So nice.
They're clean and huge, and and you have everything. You have all the amenities, and they probably have a staff that's going to make food for you, like you said, in a kitchen, and like you all sit down at a big table and you eat together. That's badass, man.
Wow.
Yeah.
And over here, we're like cutting art funding for schools and like all kinds of stupid stuff.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah.
Right.
And then it's like, here's $10 go to McDonald's, Okay.
Hopefully in the next 2 years or something, there may be some changes here. Leadership wise, probably not, but
You never know.
you never know, right? Like, who knows what's happening? But it seems like art and entertainment need to take more of a forefront here, and that's great. Like, I would have never thought in Europe stuff's better with the government involved. Well, it's because it's managed and handled better at that level over there. It's not just the inquirer running the country like here. um, that's a good kind of pivot here, to talk about labels and record labels. There's a question we got, Simon. Some of this is really specific, I think, to particular bands as far as contracts, but in general, it's Alina
Yep.
Gavrilenko. That's probably butchered. Sorry, Alina, but this is from Facebook. She'd love to hear your advice on how to sign and negotiate contracts with labels. Also, what I think this ties into more is, can they dictate collaborations, who you work with? And more so than that is a label necessary today in the metal scene, during lockdown, post lockdowns, and tours and festivals? And then one other thing, real quick. Sorry, I got pages here. If you stay independent, do you still have the same slots and opportunities? And Alana says, "Thank you." So I know that's a lot to unpack, but basically is getting the label from both of you guys, not being signed, getting signed, and not to take another 4 hours, because I know it's not something that you can say one particular thing, but just generalizing labels, touring with and without them, opportunities with and without them, your perspective. And both you guys, again, can just take this away and I'll take a nap or something.
Yeah, we could do a whole day on this.
Right,
Yeah.
right. You know.
Well, okay, I'll just try to sum it. Do you need a label? Man, I don't know, man. I don't know. I'd love to say I do know, but I mean, in my experience, I've signed like, I don't know, 3 contracts. I feel like you still need a label. I do, but I might just be old school. I might be totally wrong. Okay, I'm just disclaimer. I might be totally wrong, but I feel like people take you more seriously when you're on a label. Still, maybe they
Right.
still do. If you're independent, you got to do all the work yourself. You also get all the money yourself, but to be independent, you got to have a good team, or else it's all going to fall on one person or 2 people. So I would like to think that you got to be in a position where you have the chemistry to do all the work together. It's not just about, the money and the numbers. It's like a lot of work to do. And in terms of getting opportunities and such, I'd say that really still boils down to who you friggin' know. It's most important thing, like who you know, rather than like who you are. I mean, who you are has a big play too. How many tickets can you sell? Of course, it's really important, But like, hey, we're gonna go on this run. You think you guys would support? Just like a casual question like that. Oh yeah, maybe we'll see. And then all of a sudden your band gets on a tour, and then all of a sudden you get on more tours, and it's like that's all just because of one little question. Like there's a band. There was a band from Hamilton, Ontario, from here in Canada called Lutharo, and they're on a band. They're on a tour with Hailstorm, Glory Hammer, and I think this has got to be their first tour, and that was all because they know someone from Hailstorm that I think did like help doing their orchestral programming, and I'm just like, oh well, you guys want to like hop on a tour with us, and like for a band like them, that's a huge opportunity.
Right.
That's
Sure.
amazing. It's really amazing. I'm really happy for them too. By the way, if you guys are watching this, good fucking job. That's
they're a great band too. I've been following them for a little while.
Yeah, and like they're like a brand new band, and so like they just happen to know this guy, and that one tour. Now this could skyrocket it could enhance their career significantly.
Right.
So at the end of the day, I mean, when we first got on signed to a booking agent, he was getting, because we were on a label, then we were able to get a booking agent. Unfortunately, it was John Finberg. We can take a whole another time on that too.
Yeah.
So it's like because
We can
I'm
bleep
sure
that out if we need to, Jack. Do we need to bleep that out?
No, it's all good.
I don't know. I still feel like getting on a label, it makes you more important, and therefore makes you more susceptible to getting better offers. I really do.
Right.
I'd like to know who is the band right now that is independent and that's doing all that and killing it and everything. I'm sure there's someone, I just can't think of them right now. But I'd like
I
to know.
think Periphery's independent at the moment.
Oh, okay.
They're releasing independently. But I totally agree with you that it's if you're not on a label, I don't think it's impossible to be successful and be doing stuff, but I think it's a lot harder and you're going to be spending a lot more hours not making music. You know, just learning even like distribution of your albums into stores so that people can buy them, or logistics of booking a tour yourself or something. I mean, and you can hire all these people, but then you're going to have to pay for it. And a big part of what a label does, at least for us, I think I can say this and nobody will be mad, but getting advance money to do an album is significant because none of us are reaching into our own pockets and paying 15 grand to make a record and do music videos and this kind of stuff. So it's probably, you have to think of what your needs are as a band and whether a label and a particular label can provide that. Because we've also seen, potential contracts from like 4 or 5 labels, and every single one was totally different, provided totally different things, and asked totally different things of us. So it's also what is a label these days. They're not all doing the same things, and they don't all have the same strengths or weaknesses. So that's a whole other can of worms. What should a label do for a band?
Yeah,
Right.
I think too. There's another question in there, which was oh fuck! I just on tip of my tongue now. I just forgot it. In that question, there was the last part of the question, which was what again? There was one part we didn't answer. It was like not about the offers you'll get, but
the labels. Well, no, we did the tours.
Because it was relevant.
Opportunities.
I just can't remember right now. Oh yeah, collaborations.
Who you can collab with, right? Does the label determine that? And also, you brought up a point I'll tie in because I just want to know: does the label dictate who you tour with? I think you kind of answered that, but if the headliner wants their buddy's band to open, the label doesn't get to say on that. Or like Jack said, the label do whatever they want depending on the label. So opportunities and touring, support acts, basically.
Well, going to the collaboration thing before I forget, because that's actually an interesting question. Technically, I think that will, like Jack said, depend on the label and what the kind of contract. But in my case, we have had that clause on every contract we signed. Like, if you're going to do another album, it's if you're not done with us, you have to give that album to us. However, I don't think that's ever been enforced, and I don't think they're going to ever really enforce that unless you're someone really huge. And honestly, it's kind of a dick move to do that. So if they're going to do that, I mean, I'd like to know who that happened to actually, because it's been there in every contract, but it's never happened, and we've done other stuff and other collaborations, and they didn't care. So I don't really think it's a thing, but it's in there. So if they wanted to legally act on it, in our case, they might have been able to. And what was the other question? Sorry. Zeus, you said for you wanted to know something.
Right. When it comes to touring and support acts, ultimately the headliner can have whoever they want to tour, or does the label, does management, like what other factors? I just want to know because there are quite a few bands and friends that I've made that I would love to see tour together. So if the guy's like, oh, the label won't let us pick the band, I'll be like, well, that's bullshit. So just tell me no.
Well, that is bullshit. The labels will never have anything to do with what bands on what tour.
Right.
It's a booker. It's a booker that will determine that, not a label.
Okay.
Unless
or management or something like this.
Right.
Or management getting you an offer. Unless the label, someone at the label, and they're like I was talking about before, is shooting you an offer. Like, hey, did you know that this band is going to go on tour? Maybe you should go on tour with that band. And you know what? I'm going to put you in touch. And that's like a hookup. You're just getting hooked up from someone at the end of the day. But it just happens to be the label. But they'll never. People think that getting on a label means that you're going to get tours. This is not at all the case. You need to book your own tour or get a booker that's going to book you a tour. The label's not going to do shit for your tour, except give you tour support, hopefully.
Right.
Sorry, lend you tour support. Sorry.
And take a cut on the back end, the label gets part of your tours on the back end, or no?
Depends.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
That's how that works for sure.
Yeah, like Jack had mentioned just while you're gone, we're just covering a lot of ground, but it's heavy stuff. But man, your attitude and Jack's as well are like inspiring. Like it's this is my experience, and I'm going to try to take away something that's like positive from it and stay positive. I really want to push that as like this is what we talk about. We like get goosebumps thinking about it. It's like you can live your dream. You need to be treated like a human. You put up barriers, Simon, like you said, to say, well, I'm playing music for a living or recording music for a living. But you shouldn't be expected to take a certain amount of stuff that somebody working at like Office Max isn't going to do because they're working at Office Max. You know what I'm saying? It's like, well, you're a musician, so you shouldn't get to have a coffee before you unload your trailer. You know what I mean? So it's things that hopefully other people can be inspired by. Like these are pro guys telling you what the deal is and what you should expect and what's more acceptable to say, well, that's cool, I'll deal with that. And then on the other hand, what's not cool. But I guess at the end of the day, you may have to make a decision. And as you grow and become, leveled up, as you guys say, the clout you have to maybe not take as much BS changes, but to keep things kind of more positive and not such a downer, we got some good food questions. Everybody wants food questions. You want to dive into some of those dishes there, Simon?
Sure, if you like. Yeah.
You're silly, and I'm sure you can tie this into touring and labels. It's like Phil Rain from Facebook wants to know. He says, "Tell me more about the bread you like. What's your go-to loaf?" Simon, you have a go-to loaf here?
I'm a whole wheat sour bread kind of guy. I like those really like I don't the white bread, like, get away from me. I don't want that ever. I like some good whole grain loaf, or like sourdough, like bread that's like, not this like inflated, like they'd like put like an air pump into it and just start pumping it. Like just good ass bread, man.
Right.
Come on.
Like store bought, or you go to like a bakery up there? Like, what's your sourcing? Your bread dealer?
We don't have bakeries in Canada.
No.
Of course, just fucking with you.
I mean, honestly, dude, I don't have there's one bakery that does like cupcakes and stuff that does bread here. Like we don't have like bakery, so I was kind of surprised, but not really.
No, I mean, we got pretty good bread in grocery stores in Canada. It's like I'll buy like in the States, what's that bread, like the Dave's bread or whatever?
Oh, Dave's Killer. Yeah, they're ex-cons. It's really good concept of that company. And it's like a guy rocking out on it, but it's expensive, but
I like bread like that,
Right.
Chunky, meaty bread.
Right, like they used to eat on ships when Vikings were crossing the ocean until it got moldy and they threw it out.
Hang on. That's the other thing about Europe, all right? The bread rules. The bread fucking rules. That's 5. You in the catering, and you get there and you just have these big and they give you a knife to cut it yourself. It's not like, like here's your ham and cheese sandwich and your lunch bread. It's like the bread is awesome.
You're not afraid of gluten in Europe, it seems like. You're of a wheat planet. Yeah. Jack, you got a favorite loaf, man? What's your go? You probably don't eat bread.
Man, no, I totally eat bread. Are you kidding me? Who doesn't eat bread?
Yeah, what's wrong with you? Some kind of asshole or something?
No, yeah, I'm a big fan of like home baked sourdough.
Oh,
like some really your grandmother made this sourdough and it's made with love, and you slap some butter on there, and there's nothing like it in the world.
Yeah, the worst thing that could have happened to me in COVID was somebody gave me a bread maker.
Oh.
You
That
cannot.
was the worst thing.
You cannot. Well, health wise, it probably took 20 years off my life eating homemade bread for a year. But either of you guys, man, you don't do anything. You dump all the ingredients in it and you push some buttons. And if you want a sourdough loaf, if you want a wheat loaf, if you want a maple oat crunch, glazed cinnamon, anything, it makes it. It takes like 4 or 5 hours.
That's
but
remarkable.
So Jack and I had talked before about how much of an effect alcohol has touring as a musician. And also, I know there's other stuff people do recreationally, but drinking in particular seems, with metal, it's like you drink when you're on tour. And he's stopped drinking since he's been off tour. And I just mentioned, it's like, I can tell, meeting him in person and talking to him not drinking, he just looks healthier, and I know, Simon, you did the tour drumming with Inhuman Condition, and you did it dry, and you posted just like, I'm not drinking this whole tour. I'm playing, and I want to be as good as I can be. And you also drum tech for Deicide, same tour. How do you think that? I'm sure it was beneficial, but I wanted to ask you personally, like, what's your experience from touring normally with your band and drinking and things like that? Like, how did it specifically change your experience touring and also teching the same, for your headliner?
All I can say is that it was absolutely amazing. Like, to the point where, like, I don't think I ever want to drink on tour again.
Wow.
Yeah, it was really a big difference. Also, my environment was very different on that tour, so I think I was feeling differently.
Right.
Feeling good, but yeah, man, waking up in the morning feeling good on tour. What? It's like, and just overall energy levels.
Right.
It drags you down, man. Like, alcohol sucks, man. It really does. It's kind of shitty.
Yeah.
I like it though, but it sucks. I don't know.
Right. Well, there's a time and place for it. I think the moderation, like they say, is the key to anything. It may be one of those things touring. I know anytime we played is just like the highest I ever got was like we had played the Milwaukee Metal Fest as an independent band, self-funded everything, put our own BS, EPs out and stuff like that. You take the drinking as one of the trade-offs. So you're not getting but X amount of money. You're not getting food, but you get 4 or 5 pitchers of PBR, or you get a bottle of Jaeger, a bottle of Jack, and whatever. So you take that; it's almost part of your payment. And on a lower level, you just accept that, and so you kind of get into this routine, and then you don't maybe realize some of the other things that are happening that you would be coherent of if you weren't, drinking or whatever all the time.
That's so wrong on so many levels, man.
Right.
Just getting paid in booze. Like, here, get paid in poison. It's
right.
What the hell is that? That's horrible. Honestly, yeah. I mean, wow. I don't know. It was a really good experience for me. Also, no one around me was drinking. Like, my crew, my band, Inhuman, they weren't drinking. That is why I did a dry run, because I wanted to hop on their boat. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, that's probably 99% of it is the environment. Yeah. Everybody's there. It'd be like going out, like one of my friends teaches like metal yoga. Like, she does the Vakken stuff every year. Like, if you're in that environment, it's easier to do what is the right thing, which is not drink, or to exercise. Like, that's a show I want to get into down the road, is like, how do you stay healthy on tour, exercise on tour, being a musician. Like, that's, I think, a big thing people don't talk about, like, hardly, but yeah, that's so awesome because you typically think of like a death metal band, like everybody's going to be drinking, everybody's going to be smoking weed, everybody's going to be doing some crazy stuff, and then the show is affected by that. You see the results.
For sure, man.
That-
On the
that's
weed,
awesome.
on the weed front, though, I'm a full on pothead. Like I can smoke no.
Oh no.
Uh-oh. You froze up again. That's the funniest place that could happen. Hey, I'm a total pothead.